Welcome to the Strength Theory of the Unexplained. I'm your host, John Ventre. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about whistleblowers. Well, I've never been able to whistle, but our guests are Fred Saluga, James Krug, and Jason Geis, and enjoy our episode.
So today we're going to discuss whistleblowers, and the general term for that is a person who informs on a person or an organization that's engaged in some type of illicit activity. And we have more and more of this coming out today with a lot of conspiracies coming into the mainstream that are relabeled scandals. And it's never covered by the mainstream media, but we have probably a couple hundred Americans over the past 30 to 40 years that have lost their lives. And some allege that's because they're whistleblowers. And I think the evidence for this, if you really want to look back to it, I think it goes the whole way back to the CIA Manual on Assassinations in 1953. Have you guys heard about this manual?
Well, that's the one they used for Forrestal, right? And they said you had to be at least 6 stories or something like that.
Yeah.
Throw them out a window.
Yeah. So this had come out, and you can find the actual manual online. And officially, it only relates to how the CIA takes care of foreign operatives. So probably right away we think of a terrorist in a cave somewhere in the Middle East. But some people are asking, if they had this strategy in place for overseas, are they using it here domestically?
You know, I just got a question from that. Does the CIA operate at all on U.S. soil, or are they only foreign?
No, they operate on U.S. soil.
They
See,
do.
I was always under the impression
no, it's
FBI was
supposedly.
U.S. and CIA wasn't,
Mhm.
but I guess it's not. You
It's
know,
like they have the umbrella with the heart attack. They can actually induce a heart attack on somebody. And yeah, they do it here. I mean, Frank Strange, when he died at that conference, somebody said he was going to die. They told Ray Barker he was going to die there.
Yeah.
And he died that day from a heart attack.
Yeah.
So
It's funny
that's
how
the
they
way doing
tested
it.
out all of their stuff. Like, this is what you got to do, and then they actually did it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of the reason I know you're a big JFK fan, that
Yeah.
he really wanted to rein the CIA in, because I think the
Absolutely.
intention was FBI is domestic, CIA is foreign, but I
That's
think
what I always-
JFK got a real sense of the overreach of the CIA.
Oh, you know how I can answer my own question? Area 51 is run by the CIA,
Mhm.
right? So there you go.
Yeah.
CIA is domestic. It's not only international. So there
Well,
you
now
go.
they let them do stuff here.
Yeah, ever
They
since
came up-
9/11 now
yeah,
they can
under
officially
the
keep it.
bill that they passed after 9/11,
Yeah.
what was that called?
Homeland Security.
Yeah, Homeland
Yeah.
Security, the CIA got stuff they can do now in this country.
Yeah. So skeptically, I started to look into it, and I thought, all right, if hundreds of Americans are really losing their lives, you would think sooner or later somebody would be caught at this. And so I started to speculate on, if this is actually happening, if these people are being assassinated, why then is nobody ever caught at it? And so for starters, statistically, 80% of people who are murdered know the murderers. Usually it's a close relationship. So statistically, if you wanted to go out and just eliminate somebody you had no relationship to, it would be a heck of a lot tougher to be able to trace that. Multiple studies have also shown that impulsive murderers are a lot less intelligent than people that premeditate. So if these are premeditated, statistically, the people doing it are going to be a lot more intelligent. Intelligence agencies like the CIA also are going to have a lot more resources to be able to do this than if you just had a beef with somebody and you're going to try to take them out. You also notice with a lot of these whistleblowers that the killings are happening at a time when the person is very vulnerable. Either they're home alone, or as you mentioned, you're at a conference, you're away somewhere, you're by yourself. With the recent DNC email leaks, there was one DNC staffer that died while she was jogging alone. So it always happens at a time where the person is very vulnerable. And it seems like a common theme, and Israel's Mossad has even been caught at this in the Middle East, is it's never just one person. They always work in teams. So if it's one-on-one and you're physically strong, there's a chance you could overpower your assassin. But if there are multiple people involved, the chances of a person surviving that seem to be quite a lot less. As John mentioned earlier, if you actually look at the CIA Manual on Assassinations, they are using methods that are very difficult to trace. So it's very little gunshots. A lot of it is blunt force trauma to the head, fall from high buildings like Forrestal, gunshots, but self-inflicted gunshots ruled suicides.
With 2 bullets.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Two
What
shots.
about a hitman that kills himself all the time?
Mm-hmm, yep.
They're under mind control, whereas when they hear the whistle blowing or whatever, they automatically shoot themselves.
Well, and that goes even back to the JFK assassination.
Right.
Oswald is taken out before he can even answer
Yeah,
any questions. The one other thing that I've seen, this is common with local police agencies, sometimes they'll have a killing, they'll think it's a run-of-the-mill killing,
Right.
and then the feds come in and they say, look, we are taking over this entire case. And then the local or even state police can't do anything.
Well, in that episode, think about Vegas. The gun dealer out there. The feds took that over 100%.
The guy who shot from up top and
He
killed
didn't shoot nobody.
250 people, whatever it was.
That was a
Yeah.
gun running ring. We were supposed to be selling the guns to somebody overseas.
Well, if you actually look, they've done side-by-side comparisons with that Las Vegas
Yeah.
police officer, and early on, right after the shooting, he's very open and upfront with the public, says, we're gonna get to the bottom of this, I'm gonna keep you updated every step of the way. And then as it goes, he becomes a lot more closed off, and always to his right-hand
The
side.
FBI.
Yep,
Yeah.
But you see, I
And
see
I think he
that.
pinched him.
But I see that as a problem. When a federal agency takes it over,
Mm.
what if the federal agency is covering it up because
That's
of
what they're
something
doing.
else? Yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
saying
right.
that. So the local should really be involved with them, but once you cut them out, they've taken over, they can do whatever they want.
They're sheeple.
I know, no kidding.
If
Sheeple.
sheeple. If the government is there, they say, oh my God, the government, they're here to help us. They're not here to kill us.
So if you actually narrow it down and you research whistleblower causes of death, there's 4 that are the most common. There's car wrecks, suicides, heart attacks, and fast-acting cancers. I think you brought this up at one of your conferences
What
first.
about taking about airplanes?
There are a number of those. I'm going to bring up the Clinton Deadpool. There's a number of
Yeah.
people that have died with airplane wrecks. And then you can also separate Deadpools, in my opinion, into a couple different subject areas. You've got UFO researchers. Over 300 of them have died mysteriously or prematurely over the past 20 years. You've got the Kennedy assassination. Have any of you ever read Richard Belzer's book, The Hit List?
No.
So within 10 years of the Kennedy assassination, over 150 people that were close to that had died prematurely.
Yeah.
Now it's to the point today, so 1963, 40, 50 years since then, a lot of people are starting to die of old age, but within 10 years, 150 people had died. And some of them were really random. One Kennedy assassination witness had died from a karate chop to the neck. So these are not common things. You've got political scandals. Over 200 people have died from that early. You've got national security, anything from NSA spying scandal to September 11th. You've got dozens there. And finally, this one really surprised me. Have you guys heard, if you are a cancer researcher or you research alternative energy, or you're some type of doctor looking for a holistic cure to cancer, we've had over 80 of them die prematurely just in the last 20
Yeah.
years alone.
Yeah, that's
What was that group? Do you remember that they were all, there was like 19 scientists?
It was on that airplane.
Marconi, wasn't it
Well, Marconi was the space program.
Okay,
When they put, what you call up there, Ravens thing.
okay.
Yeah, that's, well, with that.
There's a
one,
lot of them in the pharmaceutical side, like you're saying, that they knocked off all the scientists that
They took
working
19
on.
or 20 of them, yeah.
Okay.
So do you guys want to go through each of the different subgroups of whistleblowers, like UFO researchers?
Yeah, run
Name some
through,
different-
yeah, run through.
So I've got a couple here. A recent one, have you heard of Max Spears? He was a British
Yeah,
UFO
yeah.
researcher.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
might be right up your alley.
Yeah.
So Spears is researching government elite and UFOs and their relationship to demonology. And so he's from Britain and he's speaking at a conference in Poland, and he must have had wind that somebody was going to try his life, and he actually called his mom while he was staying with a friend in Poland. He says, "Mom," he said, "your boy's in trouble. I'm really worried. Just pray for me." Within the next day or two, he is seen vomiting up black liquid at his friend's house before he's even able to present there, and then he dies right away. And he was very young. He was only, I think, 36 or 37 at the time. And there's a number of those cases. Even the man who wrote Stonehenge Decoded did some amazing work on Stonehenge, and it didn't even necessarily relate to extraterrestrials. It was just about how advanced it was. And he wound up floating off the shore of the British Isles And the British police researched it and just ruled it a natural cause of death. So how can you show up floating in the shore and it just being ruled a natural cause of death?
Oh, because they know what's happening. I mean,
So they say just like he fell in and drowned?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just natural cause of death. Yep. But probably the one you guys want to talk about, this is, in a lot of people's opinion, this is the first UFO researcher to ever get knocked off, was the first Secretary of Defense, James Forrestal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what happened in that case?
Well,
they knocked out of the window.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it's Symington drives him to the Bethesda Hospital, and he's related to Fife Symington, who covers up Phoenix Lights. But and the last person to visit him is LBJ, trying to convince him not to bring the Roswell information forward. They put him on the 16th floor when the staff said to put him on the first floor, and of course that night the staff and the doctors are off, and he supposedly tied a sheet around his throat loosely, and yet there's scuff marks all over the windowsill.
Yep.
He goes out the 16th floor. There's a third floor canopy he hits, but it was enough to kill him.
But he was there for a couple of days, and his brother came and said he was taking him out
The
the
next
next day. The
Yeah.
man died that
Yeah.
night,
Yeah.
so it was, you know.
The other twist on Forrestal, did you guys know he was one of the men named to Majestic 12?
Yeah, it was an MJ-12.
Right, so a lot of people think there was conflict early on because Truman wanted it kept secret,
And he wanted to go
Forrestal
public.
really wanted to go public with this, so they think that's why he was knocked off. We also have Dr. James McDonald, and he tried to convince Congress to have UFO hearings. He dies of a gunshot wound to the head. And then right now, have any of you guys ever read Behold a Pale Horse by Bill Cooper?
Yeah.
And Jay, what happened in that one? Do you remember?
Well, he got shot by the police, supposedly trying to defend his house. I mean, the official story, and then he got pretty much killed by the police. And I read one story where the police officer said it was an accidental discharge, and then another time where they had to defend himself. I don't know what the official story.
Well, he was unarmed though. They got him outside the house.
Uh-huh.
He was not armed, but they shot him like 20 times.
He lived up on top of a hill. A bunch of stuff happened down at the bottom of the hill.
Yep.
And when he started to come back up, they confronted him,
Yeah.
and that's when it all started. They say that he pulled the gun out and started shooting at them.
Yeah. So, the other Deadpool we have, and we tend to call these Deadpools when there's a lot of people involved in one area. But on the Kennedy assassination, I found this piece of research. This is interesting. In 3 years after the Kennedy assassination, so up through 1966, we had 18 material witnesses die. 6 were from gunfire, 3 motor accidents, 2 suicides, 1 from a cut throat, 1 from that karate chop I told you about, 3 from heart attacks, and 2 from natural causes. So an actuary was interviewed by the London Times, and the actuary said the probability of 18 witnesses dying of any cause within 3 years of an event was 1 in 100,000 trillion. So that was how statistically unlikely it was for that to actually happen.
Question, just because of the way they classified it. I mean, what separates natural causes from heart attack? I mean, heart attack is a natural
Normally
cause
a
as
natural
well.
cause,
Yes.
right.
So, like, when they say natural causes, what would they mean by natural
That's a
causes?
good question. I think the only reason that they didn't consider heart attacks that is the people it happened to were still relatively young, so they weren't in that age range where you'd expect to see it. That's really
But
good.
also in that, when they had the House hearing on the assassination committee, they had, the ones who were supposed to testify on him, again, there were 3 or 4 of them, they all died
Yeah.
before they could testify.
There's a couple good quotes. This is one from William Sullivan. He was a high-ranking member of the FBI, and he was officially killed in a hunting accident after the Kennedy assassination. Before that, he says to his wife, he says, "Someday you'll read I've been killed in an accident, but don't believe it, I've been murdered." So it seems like even the people that know that this is happening. This one comes from Joe Scheiman, who is a professional assassin and a deep cover operative. And he's the guy that did a lot of work for what people refer to as the permanent government. So whether it's a Democrat or a Republican in office, the overall course of the nation is basically the same because that comes from above the president. So here's his quote. "People are eliminated. Honey, you don't know just how many people are just eliminated just on the operating table alone. They need to be disposed of, and don't ever believe what you read in the papers. It's all made up." So This is pretty chilling stuff.
Yeah.
When you look at the CIA manual on assassinations, you tend to just think, well, yeah, that happens to bad guys overseas. I don't need to worry about that. But it seems like it's definitely happening here to people too. Well, this next Deadpool might be up your alley, John. I assume you've heard some of the Clinton Deadpool?
Very little, because I stay away from the Clintons.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I'm a Republican. But
Well,
go ahead.
with political scandals, we have a couple Deadpools, and I've tried to research all the recent presidents on both sides. Like, I would have assumed that George H.W. Bush would have had one because he was a former director of the CIA, but really the two big hits you actually get are from the Clinton Deadpool, and actually there's an Obama Deadpool also. And so the Clintons, Bill and Hillary, have had over 100 close associates over the last 20 years. This goes the whole way back to Vince Foster and the Whitewater scandal, die under mysterious circumstances. And a lot of it comes from plane wrecks. Now, I think skeptically you could look at it and say, well, they're politically connected to a lot of movers and shakers, people flying by air a lot, so they might be more likely to lose somebody in an airplane crash than a regular person. But it's up over 100 people now for that. So much so that it's almost become a meme online with Hillary Clinton.
Little Clinton. No, what Clinton? Little Kennedy, John. When they said his plane was upside down, and the guy that was fishing over there, he was fishing on the other side of the bay. He was from Pittsburgh, as a matter of fact, and he said that plane blew up. And they shot
Oh, wow.
they said they shot it down with electronic. With
That whole family line,
Yeah.
it's just like, all you
Oh,
had
goodness.
left was Ted and then a couple of grandkids out of,
Well, real quick
sad.
with that. Okay, with Teddy. Okay, now we got chapter quick.
Check quick, yeah.
Okay, my thing is Teddy wasn't even in the car when she got killed.
Whoa, that's a twist.
Well, I never
What's
heard
your
that.
theory on that?
Okay, number one, if you remember correctly, he was in an airplane crash about a week before. Okay, so he goes to this party. The CIA can't take him out. How's that gonna look? 3 brothers dead. So what they do, they set him up with her,
to control
and then they controlled him. She died. He didn't even know she died. The deputy said there were 3 people in that car that night. And they
Really?
took him off the stand immediately. It's written
Oh,
down.
that's crazy.
Wow, that's
Look
a
at
twist.
it, look at it.
Yeah.
And they told him, more or less, if you open your mouth, your family will die. So he just went along with it.
So what about Obama?
Well, there's a surprising amount on Obama, and this might really surprise people, but most of his Deadpool associates were people either from his own family or his own young upbringing that some people think had a little better insight on where he actually came from. And
Yeah.
I mean, we don't want to stir up the whole birther pot, but even if you look at his career at face value, he basically served 1 term in the Senate, kind of came out of nowhere, and suddenly is president of the United States.
Yeah,
He
it's
came
very
from
strange.
Marty and Betty Hill.
But,
Okay?
like,
And what happened, he was born the same year that they were abducted. And what happened, they was actually abducted before that. And they used their sperm and whatever.
or it doesn't take us
And
long.
yeah, and
You
he
never
was
know.
born.
Yeah.
That's why there's no record on it. The
let me ask you
CIA
this.
actually brought him into the country.
So is he born in 61 when the Betty and Barney Hill abduction was?
Yeah, but it was, I think it was 11 months instead of 9 months.
Wow,
difference. But,
wow.
no, since you're on political, I spoke at David Paulides' event a couple of weeks ago, and Jeremy Ray from Hangar One was there, right, because he lives there. So he asked me, have you heard of QAnon? I said, no, what's QAnon? He said, I'll send you the link, look this up. Now, it's not, I guess it's a whistleblower. It's a guy who claims he's got a real high clearance in the government.
Which is
Q yeah.
clearance, which is supposed to be one of the highest clearances.
Yeah, I didn't even know anything about
Yeah,
that. That's exactly
that's why
right.
it's
Yeah.
QAnonymous.
Oh, that's what it means, QAnon, I got you. So it's like anonymous, it's like that group, right? But what it is he's saying that this whole thing with Trump, that Comey and Mueller actually work for Trump.
Yeah.
Part of it is to make it look like the government's coming after him, but the whole thing is to,
So,
then the case collapses and everybody says, see, he's innocent. But Trump is working with a group who's opposite the Clinton New World Order with Soros and
they're trying to bring Clinton down.
well, and that what's going to come of this is
I
really
heard
investigations now of the Clintons, of Obama, of Soros, of the Bilderbergers, of the Illuminati. So Trump is part of a New World Order
Mhm.
that's more military connected in this country. and they're going to take down the old New World Order,
Right.
which was the Illuminati, Bilderbergers, and it's going to take
Stormy's
Clinton.
part of it too.
Comey's actually,
Yeah.
that's why the last week of the election, Comey threw that out to make sure Trump wins.
Yeah.
And this whole thing's going to end up where Trump is cleared, and then he gets even more powerful.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, some of this
Yeah.
stuff.
Wow.
Again,
Well,
I didn't know
that-
anything
that-
about
that-
it.
told me that.
It got really covered by the mainstream media because of, and I forget the exact
Alex
post.
Jones or somebody like that.
Yeah, okay, because someone else, Alex Jones, started talking about it. So then, like, the actual, like, it just lasted for about a week, but, like, there'd be people on CNN and whatever. Interesting thing about the QAnon is there's a Reddit post where the guy was posting, and Reddit has since shut that down for whatever. Yeah, no one knows why. So the official reason is Reddit said that people in their comments were making threatening remarks, and you can't post threatening remarks.
Well, they
so
remove
that's,
stuff.
So that's why it's shut down. But
Yeah,
the whole
well,
thread's gone.
You
now.
got Pizzagate.
Yeah, well,
Like,
that too.
everybody
That's
sit down
part
and
of that.
bullshit. It ain't.
And-
It's true.
and-
And everyone will bring down the Clintons with that.
And what this QAnon is saying is that there are child sacrifices
Yeah.
going on,
Well, they
and,
got it where they have big hotel them.
and most of them are in
Bohemian
the,
Grove.
Yeah.
most of them are in LA area
Yeah.
and DC
Bohemian Grove,
area.
yeah.
And that the whole Pizzagate thing is all part of this, and they're gonna come forward with all the pictures and who's involved, and the
But
killing
that's
of these
not-
kids.
Podesta, they say Podesta is the biggest pedophile there is. And you guys
Yeah.
want him to talk at the damn symposium.
Yeah, so we'll see, what happens with that, but if you can believe it all, but the thing is, but then if you watch the QAnon thing, I watched YouTube, it gets so far into the future, and then it starts kind of talking about genetic engineering and all this
and it
other
starts
stuff,
to,
and I start saying, wait a minute, you're
weird
losing
very
me now,
quick, yeah.
you're losing me
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So who knows what's true, yeah.
Well, if we lump these last two together, we have cancer and alternative energy deaths. So we have over 80 holistic doctor deaths over the last 3 years. We had 11 cancer doctors murdered within 3 months of each other. And the common theme is they were all working on cures outside of chemotherapy and radiation, which ever since the 60s, the American Medical Association has contended are the only two ways you can cure
Well,
cancer.
they just had one die not too long ago, about 2 weeks
Is that
ago,
right?
down in Florida.
Yeah, and so it seems like if you're getting into this, it's a high risk field.
Yeah.
And then similar to that, we have alternate energy deaths, and some people think this goes the whole way back to Stanley Meyer. If you remember, he was the inventor that had the water powered car. And so he ends up running out of a restaurant yelling, "They poisoned me," and he just falls over dead. And so long story short, it seems like both of these kind of go together because people feel like the cancer industry generates billions of dollars a year for the treatment of cancer.
Right.
And then you have powerful oil cabals that if we ever could figure out cold fusion here on Earth, then suddenly oil is almost useless. So,
Well, that's why they don't want the UFOs to be found. Because if we start digging into their stuff, we could probably have it without any doubt. That's why they killed, didn't kill him. If they did, what's his name? Was Tesla. As soon as Tesla died, they ran up to.
I don't think they killed him because they waited till he's 93, but they definitely took all his
Yeah,
files.
they took all his files.
They took his
Yeah,
files.
exactly.
Well, they would kill him before that. But, anyway.
Maybe they killed him at 60 and replaced him with a clone.
Well, what's his name? The guy in the wheelchair. What the hell's his name?
Stephen Hawking.
Hawking.
Oh, 'cause I think he was a robot.
Oh yeah?
Well, they had said that he was an animatronic robot that he died years ago, and they replaced him because of the voice, and how easy it was to trick everybody. I don't know.
Well, you know, sometimes
it's
there's a-
whoever thinks of this should actually make movies of this stuff.
There's kind of a gray line between what is a robot and what is not, because Tesla had one quote where he said he sometimes felt that he was basically an automaton, which was like an older term for a robot, and he was basically just reacting here to things being told to him. Even when he discovers the alternating current motor, which we still use today, he was, I think, taking a walk through Central Park. It was daytime, and then all of a sudden there was just a flash, and he just basically said he saw it right there on the sky, like basically a blueprint of it. And even if you look at amazing discoveries, like the Wright brothers make the first powered flight in 1903 at Kill Devil Hills, they only beat a guy from Europe by a couple weeks at that. And so some people think that humans on the whole are sort of getting seeded different ideas
Yeah, I've
to
heard
advance
that.
us.
Yeah.
And lots of people are given the idea, but then certain ones that do it first
Yeah.
here become famous. So I don't know, I think there's kind of like a fine line
Yeah.
anymore between what's a robot versus what's not.
Yeah, and like Tesla could visualize and almost go into another dimension or something and see
Mhm.
these things, you know.
Mhm.
So it's amazing. I mean, what's around us, reality is stranger than science fiction. This is really like a supernatural haunted planet. It really is.
What's interesting about the Tesla and the viewing of, or getting, things, so to speak, there's a science fiction writer, Philip K. Dick, but he claimed that he would get transmissions. I mean, there's other people said he was just schizophrenic and he's been diagnosed, but some of the claims that he would have that he would get these transmissions from some satellite out in space, like it's actually documented. He got one and he lifted up his son and took him to the hospital and said, "Yo, my son, there's something wrong." Kid was totally fine, but he made him run all these tests, and they literally, while they were running the test, the kid's spleen burst.
Wow.
And he said that he got that from this other intelligence. So like the idea of that other intelligence picking people, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and letting you just follow is not, not unique to just like a scientist. Now.
Yeah.
Wasn't Uri Geller really big into that?
He
contended
believes
was
that there was like a
orbiting
satellite
Earth.
out there that was doing the same
Right.
thing.
Or I know even since the early 1950s, when the United States started to develop the first really quality radio telescopes, they were shocked because instead of just deep space messages, they were getting something from right above Earth's atmosphere that they were receiving, and that's where Legends of the Black Knight satellite come into play as well. I just have one last thing on the oil power thing. If you think about it, we've been researching nuclear fusion since at least the 50s or so. And right now, officially, the only way we can do it is with hydrogen bombs. And so you can't really contain that. But they've also been researching the idea of cold fusion. So basically doing what the sun does, but at much, much lower temperatures. And I've read that the fusion process is so efficient that a single glass of water could power the entire city of Los Angeles for a full calendar year if you actually took all that mass and just converted it to pure energy. That's where Einstein's E equals mc squared comes from. But you look at some of these things like anti-gravity propulsion, like fusion, that we're hearing about as early as the 50s, and we're now almost to 2020, and we seemingly haven't made any progress. So you have to ask yourself if behind the scenes this is happening, but the major players out there are keeping it secret.
Yeah. That's why when you do your next episode on the space program,
Yeah.
we got this stuff.
All right.
Life is the placebo we live in.
You
The real
get
thing's
ready
going
to
on
talk
over there.
about power like that, okay. We went up to Canada. We had to build a damn pipeline down here, right? Oh, it's going to help us. We're paying more for gas now than we did before.
Yeah, it's going
Who
back
in
up.
Congress has what's called stocks in oil companies? They all do.
That would have been Canadian oil for
Yeah.
that. That's their heavy
But they're
oil
coming from
shale.
here.
Yeah.
I mean, but they had, it's like our guy down in West Virginia, Manchin,
Yeah.
or Manson, whatever his name.
Mansion.
I mean, his daughter runs the thing here in Pennsylvania when you get the bee bite for kids.
EpiPen.
Yeah. She gets $2 million a year. She gets paid.
Yeah.
His wife gets paid $1 million. How much money is he getting out of that?
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of
They're all
times
crooked.
that might not even involve a deep conspiracy, but it's just supply demand economics. Like I know you invest some. One time I got crushed on a fuel cell company. It was the world's leading producer of fuel cells, and it was trading less than $10 a share. I looked, the peripherals looked really good. I ended up getting crushed on it because what the oil producers do is when there's some really powerful green energy startup, they just flood the market with crude oil. So the supply goes way up, demand goes down, price sinks long enough to run some of them out of business, and then they restrict the supply, price goes back up.
So then they buy him out, they buy him. I have the information.
Yeah.
But, it's funny with this topic, a lot of times some of these people, they're traitors to the country, but you need the whistleblowers because so many of them, I think, are bringing out stuff that the people need to know about and have a right to know about. So, sometimes people say, well, that one should be convicted of treason, but maybe it's not. Maybe they're just telling us the truth, you know?
The other thing, if you guys have noticed, especially over the last year with so many scandals, did you ever notice that when a whistleblower does come out, the media never calls it a conspiracy?
Right.
It's always rebranded a scandal because they don't want Americans to think there really are things going on behind the scene. Like to me, conspiracy and scandal sounds different. A scandal sounds like a couple people behaving unethically, whereas a conspiracy takes on this element of secrecy. So it's interesting to me because I've never heard the mainstream media refer to something as a conspiracy. They always change it a little bit and call it a scandal.
Well, I was going to say, unless they want to discredit it.
Yeah, that's a good
Because
call.
conspiracy has a negative connotation. So if it's something they want to discredit, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, it's just conspiracy type thing.
Yeah.
But, you know.
All right.
That's a good call.
Well, that's our episode. Thanks, and it's my shot.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.